Good day and welcome to our explanation and demonstration of how to set up a full lab inside the Microsoft Azure cloud. We're going to create an account, we're going to create a Windows 2019 server, upgrade it to a domain controller, we're going to set up a Windows 10 PC, we're going to set up Bastion, we're going to tighten up the firewall, we're going to go over a whole bunch of little bits that you need to know as well. We have a full video with all 6 items together, that's about 50 minutes long, but what we're going to do here is break this into segments for you. This is segment 3 of 6.
We're going to tighten up the security. So, as I said, right now, using the RDP, that's what people are expecting to do. However, it's super easy to avoid a lot of security risks by doing one of 2 things, or even doing 2 of 2 things here. The first thing to do is go to your networking and find your RDP and click on it and change the source from any IP to your address or your address range. However, I'm not even going to do that. I'm going to get rid of that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set up Bastion. So Bastion is, let's see if it tells us when we click on it, if it tells you what it is. Bastion is Microsoft's way of remote desktoping to any machine that's on your subnet. So you can think of it as a jump box. You can think of it as a remote desktop gateway if you're familiar with that. However, you do need, for the very first time, when you set up a new network, you need to set up a new subnet called Azure Bastion subnet. It has to be called that. So it has to start with that anyway. So let's click on that, and then let's go to Virtual Network at the top here. Setting up Bastion is a very good idea because it gives you security going forward. The idea is that you log in using a browser to portal.azure.com, go into your network, and then remote from within the browser, with basically from inside of Azure. You're not coming from outside, which makes it much safer. Again, it's worth your while doing, but it has to be set up per subnet. So let's go through it. Per network. So what we need to do here is click. In address space, you'll see add additional address range. So 10.10.0.0 /24, why not full range? There we go. Click save. Now I can go down to subnets. I can select add the subnet. I can call it Azure Bastion subnet. You can see it automatically selects the subnet that's not already used. I could put security on it. I'm just going to leave it the way it is. I could also limit it to various endpoints. And subnet delegation, as you can see. I'm just going to click OK here. And we'll give it a second to complete. And there it is. Now, that is set up for my entire network for all things I do in the future. Really, really helpful. So let's go back to the start. And I'll just click Home here. And now let's go back to Virtual Machines. Here's my virtual machine. And I want to connect to it right here, and I want to connect using Bastion. And it says Bastion service that allows it. Yep, use Bastion. It takes us down to Bastion, down here on the left. You can see it's already set up the subnet. It chose it automatically. The IP range is fine. All of this is just great. I'm going to click Create. It's going to use the existing resource group. Okay, that took 9 minutes to create, so it took a little longer than I was expecting, a little bit longer than what I've seen in the past, but that's what it is. So now we can just ignore this. We can go back to the virtual machines, click on the virtual machine we care about, which is ours, click Connect, and go to Bastion. And it will say, hey, great, you've got a Bastion connection, let's set it up. Test admin. And hopefully you'll get a sense of what this does. So pop-up blockers, yes, you need to turn them off. And you can see it's going out to the cloud and it's running RDP through the cloud. Look at that. So now I would be safe to go back to my Azure portal here, and I would be very safe to turn remote desktop off, which I'm going to do. I'm going to go to networking, and I'm going to go to Scroll here. I'm going to select delete. There it goes. That rule will disappear from the grid. And now I can only get to this machine using Bastion, which is the way I want it. So let's go here. At this point, I want to run the updates again, just make sure that they cleared. They seem to have, view update history, failed. That's a problem. Okay, that's not tremendously important, just Defender. So let's leave that alone. Now it's time to install the domain controller. So what we do is we click Manage and Add Roles. Next, installation type. Yes, it's role-based. We're going to put it on this server. Yes, we are. There's a couple of quirks here that you need to take note of. We want to add domain services, and it adds a bunch of features. As if you've ever done this on a physical box, you'll know that's just the same. Click Yes, that's okay. Next. Don't add anything else you don't need to. Install. Now this doesn't take that long, actually. It seems to run a little faster than it does on-prem. There we go, so that didn't take too long. And let's click Close. And up here, it's going to say, hey, you've got to finish it off. Yeah, I need to promote the server to be a domain controller. Of course you do. So, do I want to create a domain controller in an existing domain or existing forest? No, I don't. I want to create a whole new forest. This is all brand new. Now, if I try to set something up here that's just a short name, it's not going to work. I need to set up a fully qualified name. And you'll see here it's suggesting I use corp.uuu.com. So let's do electriccaddy.com as one of my sites. So I'm going to, just for the heck of it, set it up as corp.electriccaddy.com. And yes, I know caddy is not spelled the traditional way. That's the way I like it, so that's what I'm doing. Click Next. And it will validate it, and it says it's fine. Now, functional level for the forest and for the domain, the most current you can get is 2016. For most people, you're going to want to leave them at the highest number you can get. Today, that's Windows Server 2016. You have to set a password that meets all of your criteria. So by default in Server 2019, that's uppercase, lowercase, number, and a minimum, I believe, of 8 characters. Now, directory services restore mode is used in the event of a serious crash, where you have to restore your Active Directory. So I'm going to set a password. Next. Okay, there's no DNS on here. Right, we know that. Thank you. So, as usual, it will create one. What do you want the NetBIOS of the domain name to be? Sure, corp is fine. Let's click Next. Paths is next, and it's going to ask where you want to put the log. There it is, the logs, database, so on and so forth. So a lot of people will tell you to move them to different shares, or not different shares, sorry, different disks. That made a lot more sense back in the day when we had physical disks, especially when they were slow, although it was always questionable, I think. So I just leave them on the C drive, but you can feel free to move them if that's what you want to do. Click Next, and this will give us a quick check. It will come up with a number of errors, including telling us that we don't have a static address. We are going to address that in just a moment. So let's scroll down here, and there we go. Click Install. So as we're waiting for this, I'm going to go back to portal.azure.com, and we see that the RDP has been removed, which is great. So you can no longer RDP to it from outside. You can only get to it through Bastion. Please watch our next segment.